Welcome to the Victorious Souls podcast today with me, Danielle Burnock from DanielleBurnock.com. Love yourself from Survive to Thrive, that lady on the internet who loves you, today with Dr. Nghi Dang. He is a pediatrician, right? No, you're a family physician. Family physician. I just know your heart is for kids. So I slipped up there, which is why we do this live. So people know, even though you're a doctor, we are real people. But he is an author of children's books, and today's going to be addressing mental health and sharing his story of how he immigrated as just a little kid from Vietnam to the United States, sharing his struggle through all of that and how it affected him mentally and emotionally, and how he wants to help you and your kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, all the little kids, to help them have better mental health. So thank you for being with me today, Dr. Nghi Dang.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
Oh, that's wonderful. I can't wait to get into this because you have such a heartfelt story. And I think it's really important for your story to be told. When you were telling me your story, I wanted to just sit and cry. And people need to hear these things because we see things just on the superficial. We only see the outside. We don't hear the heart of the matter. Well, you were 7 years old when you immigrated here, but you immigrated from Vietnam. So tell us about life in Vietnam. I remember you telling me some fond memories and stuff and how you loved it there.
Yeah, my memories of Vietnam were pretty fond memories because the majority of my family lived in Vietnam. So I had a lot of family nearby, my grandparents, particularly my grandma. We used to visit her all the time, and it's like one of the few memories that really stuck out to me, just spending time with my grandma. She has a big garden that we used to play in. So going from that, like I remember just being loved and being close to everybody in terms of my family, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins. So I felt like I had so much family, and I always felt like I always had someone around.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where the fond memory came from. I felt like I was loved. There's a lot of support. And then when we moved, we didn't have too many family in the States. So I felt like, why am I leaving something of comfort to go somewhere where like I don't have anybody?
Yeah.
So that was a kind of tough transition too. I always question, like, why are we even leaving?
Do you know why your parents immigrated?
Well, we came here because my parents wanted to give us more opportunities that we wouldn't have in Vietnam. Obviously, in America, we had better resources to education, the a lot more opportunities as opposed to back in Vietnam. So that's why they immigrated here, to give us, those opportunities that we wouldn't be privy to if we stayed in Vietnam. But as a child, I didn't understand that. I mean, I just like,
Oh,
well,
right.
I just want
Especially
to be
you were
with my
7.
family. Yeah, I'm like, I just want to be with my family. I don't care about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So 7, were you in 2nd grade when you immigrated?
End of first grade,
End of
and
first.
then started second grade. Yeah.
Oh, so did you immigrate in the middle of the year on top of it?
No, I think my mom waited until I finished, and then we immigrated. But their school, I think it was like a month off or something.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, because I mean, middle of the year, that's hard for anybody.
Yeah.
And then I know you came from there and you had so many struggles. You were just 7. Did you have brothers and sisters that immigrated with you, or were you an only child at that time? Or
No, I'm the youngest. I had my older brother and my older sister. So we all immigrated together. But we're all at different age gaps, so we
oh yeah,
felt different different struggles at that time. My sister was 4 years older than me, so I think was starting middle school, and then
mm,
my brother
oh
was in high
yeah.
school. So we're all like different age groups.
Wow,
So
yeah, those are
different
like 3
struggles.
different
Yeah,
school experiences.
yeah,
Grammar school, middle school, and high school. Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Did they struggle also, or was it easier because they were older, or maybe it was harder? I don't know. This is just relative because trauma is personal. I'm just
Yeah.
curious. It's not something we had talked about, but it was your whole family. I'm sure it was a
Yeah.
struggle for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, they had their own struggles as well, but I think they adjusted a little quicker because they're a little bit older. They kind of
Mm,
understand a little more than I did because I was, just a little kid. I was like, I didn't really understand like why we
uh-huh.
even did this. I mean, they kind of, my brother was in high school, so he kind of understood why we moved, and it's kind of similar for my sister. She kind of understood the situation a little more and kind of
Yeah.
adjusted accordingly. But for me, I was like, I don't, why am I even here?
Yeah, I can really see that as being in high school, a person is looking forward toward their adult life, so he would understand
Yeah,
that. I mean, even if they told you at 7, you're like, I'm 7, who
yeah,
cares?
yeah, yeah,
And
pretty
in middle
much.
school, you're even starting to think about that. So I can see how that'd be coming from this vastly loving environment, just
Mhm.
surrounded by family, to this place where you're just kind of like thrown out in the middle of the ocean. I mean,
Yeah.
how did you deal with that? You came here just 7. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was a struggle, definitely. I think I went through a lot, like I told you, we talked about before. I think a lot of soul searching and kind of figuring out like who I was and what I really tried to figure out what my purpose was. I was like, I
Your
don't know
purpose
why I'm
at
even here.
age
What am I
7?
doing? Like, yeah, I mean, it sounds crazy, but like, I was just like, what am I doing here? Like, why do I?
Wow. And you said that you didn't speak English either, did you, when you came
No,
here?
no,
And no
no.
one in your family spoke English. So how did that go at school?
Well, my brother and sister, I mean, they do teach English in school, so they kind of know a little bit, but I mean, I was in first grade, so I really didn't learn anything. So then I didn't know anything at all. So it was just completely thrown into this brand new environment where it didn't speak the English, didn't understand the culture, no one understood me or understood my culture. So it was a lot of alone time.
That sounds really scary. Was it really scary to be in a place where you're in a room with all these people and adults and kids, and they're all speaking and you don't understand them? I would find that scary. Did you find that scary? Or how did that make you feel?
Honestly, I remember being felt more lonely than scared.
Mm.
I just felt like no one understood me. I remember looking at the clock a lot. I'm like, it's time to go
Is it
home
over
now.
yet? Is it over
Yeah,
yet? Can I go home?
yeah, yeah. I felt like no one understood what I was feeling or what I was trying to communicate. So it's more felt alone and lonely than fear.
Mm,
I was like, man, I just want to go home. I don't want to be here
yeah,
anymore.
yeah. And then did you talk to your parents about how you were feeling?
I mean, I didn't really talk to them much. I just said they just asked me how school was going. I'm like, it's okay. I'm still trying to learn, and didn't want to make a big deal about it because they're struggling too. Because I mean, it's a big transition for them as well.
Wow, a 7-year-old. It's so much like children when you look at your caregivers, like Dr. Gabor Mate, who's a specialist in the area of trauma, he said the kids blame themselves because they need their caregivers. So they can't do that. And I see that's like a variation on that. It's like I can't put any pressure on them because I need them kind of
Yeah,
thing. But then you didn't get your needs met in that way. I remember you telling me a story of trying to um, bring school books home. Tell our audience about that
yeah,
story because that's inconceivable to me. I hope that would never be a thing now.
yeah. So when I was going to school, we have class sets of books, right?
Hmm.
And obviously, I couldn't follow along in class because I didn't understand anything besides the math books. So my mom said, "Oh, just bring them books home, and then I'll sit down with you. We'll try to go over the books and try to help you in school." Because my parents were at college, and they were teachers. So then my mom was like, "Yeah, I can help you." So I put the books in my backpack one day and went home and went to the bus stop. But I guess what they do routinely after school's over, we do a cubby check where they check everyone has their books. They don't want any books stolen. And then my cubby was empty for the most part, except for one or two books. So the teacher's like, "Hey, where are all your books?" So I guess she went to go look for me. I was standing in waiting for the bus, and then I mean I didn't understand what she was saying, but I knew what she was trying to say. Like she's like, "Hey, where are your books?" So then she looked at my backpack, and all the books were there. And again, I didn't understand what she was saying, but I knew she was saying, "Hey, you can't take the books home. Books are for school." But I couldn't communicate with her. I'm like, I'm not trying to steal the books. I just want to take them home so I can study at home
Yeah.
and then back tomorrow. But she thought, she was under the impression I was trying to take the books. So I was like, I couldn't communicate with that with her. So she ended up just taking the books. And then I think she gave me one book. She's like, okay, you can have this book. But I was like, I don't want to steal the books. I just want to take them home. And I was just so frustrated. And I just kind of started crying because I was like, I just don't know how to communicate with you.
Yeah. That's hard to not be understood. Being understood is really important in life and especially for kids. So how did you deal with this? How long did this go on? And you said that you got bullied at school too. Did the kids pick on you?
Yeah, I mean, like I grew up in an area where I was the pretty much the only immigrant. So that's not a common thing for them. So
Mm.
I kind of stood out like a sore thumb. So I mean, you know how kids are, whoever stands out gets bullied, right? So um I think it took, luckily kids kind of adjust to language pretty fast. So I think, I caught on, let me see, probably took a few years to kind of catching on to with the language and kind of
Few
understanding.
years is like an
Yeah,
eternity to a child.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
1 year at school is like, 1/8 of your life. That's a lot.
Yeah, so it did take a few years to kind of adjust the culture and learn the language and kind of figure out how things work. I think a lot of it's kind of just figure out how things work in the States as opposed to back in Vietnam.
Wow. So it wasn't just learning English, it
Mhm.
was also learning culture.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's something that we probably don't think about. You know, when someone immigrates from another country, they learn the language or whatever. When someone goes, it's like that when you go on vacation somewhere too, there's a different culture that you're
Mhm.
going there. Wow, we don't think about that. Or maybe I don't. Maybe a lot of people don't. But that's a lot for a little kid to have to adjust to. So you said it took a couple of years. So how did you come out of this? And yeah, how do you're a doctor now, you're successful, you're married, you have kids, you're writing books. I mean, how did you get from feeling so alone and struggling so much to this wonderful life you have?
I mean, it definitely wasn't a like a step up process. I think the whole thing was just a gradual change
Mhm.
over time where um initially is kind of trying to understand the cultures, trying to understand the language, and ultimately kind of understand like because I went from being in an environment with a lot of support to
Mhm.
when I felt like I was really alone.
Yeah.
So it took a lot of time to kind of adjust to that situation and kind of figure out who I was. I felt before I always had someone I could turn to, whereas now I felt like I didn't really have much support. I just kind of kept everything in. So I mean, I spent a lot of time by myself and just thinking and figuring things out. Um, I think that's when I turned to my art, where I started drawing more and
Oh,
kind of just getting lost in my art and kind of figuring out who I was and expressing all my feeling through art and through paper. So I think that helped a lot.
yeah.
Kind of just getting everything out in some kind of way, whether it's, like for artists, people would do art, people would do music, people would do songs. So I think any way to express how you're feeling through any kind of form,
Oh, yeah.
it helps a lot with healing.
Definitely. Definitely. And so then, um, what made you decide to become a doctor?
Well, one of which is my entire family, my brother and my sister both went into medicine.
Oh, wow. What kind of doctors are they?
My brother's a pharmacist and my sister's a radiologist.
Oh, wow.
But what and then in college I was a biology major. But what really kind of cemented it was when we finally went back to visit my grandma, and I finished first year college. We came back to visit her because she was pretty sick.
Mhm.
So my mom wanted us to see her one last time before if anything happens. And then when I went back, I remember seeing her. She was just laying in her bed, just looking so lethargic and tired, and
Oh,
I just felt so helpless. I mean, I remember praying to anybody. I prayed to anyone, like whoever's up there, please just let me talk to her one last time before you take her. I just felt so helpless. I just felt like I couldn't do anything, but she never woke up. She just passed away.
hmm.
So I think at that point I was like, man, I really want to I don't like that feeling of being so helpless when someone's
Yeah.
really sick. So I was like, man, I will. That's when it cemented that I want to be a doctor.
Oh, wow. Wow. So, then you told me something about in 2020 during the pandemic, there was a bunch of stuff that happened then. Um, Tell us about, is that when you became an author? Was 2020, or were you writing your books before? Because you had your artwork that
Yeah,
had done. Did you illustrate your own books?
yeah, I illustrate the books. Yeah, yeah, but I actually haven't really explored art in a long, long time because after med school, it was residency, and then I had my family, so I was just so busy. I never really looked into art much. I
Mhm.
mean, I do some drawings here and there for as gifts for special events. Like I do caricatures for some of my nurses that retire and or move away to a different location. So occasionally I do that, but for the most part, I don't really do a lot of art until and then 2020 hit. Then we had, as like everything was turned upside down.
Yeah.
Everybody was stressed. Everyone was anxious. So we had so many visits, such an uptick in visits in mental health than ever before.
Yeah.
Not just my practice. I think everyone else's practice saw the same situation. Everyone's just stressed and freaking out, and all the everything in the world came crashing down. So in particular for me though, I felt like kids took a big grunt, like big hit, but no one really spoke up for them.
Mhm.
Going from homeschooling and being away from their friends and away from, I kind of felt what they felt like, being taken away from all the support, all your friends, all your friends' families, and maybe they used to go to their friend's house with their friends' family, parents and whatnot. Like I think they got all that taken away from them, like
Wow,
to
I can
just
completely see
yeah,
that. That's like a parallel of what happened to you. I can see that. How here you were in this loving environment, surrounded by family and support, and then all of a sudden, bam, you're in the United States and nobody speaks your language. And so
yeah,
the kids that you're seeing that they, had their environments, they had their friends, they had their support, and bam, wait a minute, everything's different.
yeah,
Wow. So your heart
yeah.
just really went out to them.
Yeah, so I mean, I really felt bad for them because I understood like how that felt, and I think the sad part is that no one really kind of spoke out about it for them. They're like, okay, this situation, kind of deal with it, and go on. Um, but when so then that's kind of motivate me to want to write stories to help kind of educate the public more about mental health for children because
Mm,
I think children's mental health really gets kind of brushed over as
yeah.
adult mental health. There's more talk about it now, which is great. But I think children's mental health still kind of like, you're a kid, you'll get over it kind of situation.
Yeah, people have this erroneous thing. In fact, people told me when my kids were little that kids are like ducks in a pond. It's like, no, they are more impressionable. It's called developmental trauma for a
Yeah,
reason. So it's that they're more susceptible, not less. People have the opposite knowledge of the truth when it comes to the impressionability of children.
yeah. So then I think that's when it started me. I wanted to do more for
Hmm.
children. I started thinking about different stories and all the trauma that I went through, and then even all the trauma my patients went through. They all share with me obviously their intimate thoughts and all the memories that they don't normally feel comfortable sharing with other people,
Oh, right.
sometimes
Yeah.
with their family. So then I started thinking about all the stories that they go through and my stories and how I can kind of incorporate them to something more like succinct that they can I can kind of write down. But still, it was still kind of this a thought, and I just think about it in the background. But after, and I think I told you, I during the pandemic, I get a call from my mom. I found out that my cousin's son committed suicide in his room.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it took me a while to process it too. When my
Yeah.
mom, I was like, oh, so my thought was like it was an attempt suicide. He's in the hospital. He's in maybe in the ICU. So I'm like, oh, okay. Is he in the hospital? Where is he? Which hospital is he at? She's like, no, 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 he's dead. I was like, wait, wait, what? She's like, yeah, it's attempted suicide, but he was successful. I was like,
Wow. And how old was he?
I think he's 21. I think he just graduated college. I think he was trying to find a job. I think he was struggling to find a job, and I think with COVID, I think I mean I can't imagine what he was going thinking, but I
Yeah.
mean I kind of all that accumulated came to a boiling point.
Yeah, the suicide rate went up so bad during COVID, and I don't know if it's gone down. So, and then is that when you started gathering to write your
I think
books?
that Yeah, I think that point I already had all the stories and things in my head that I've been thinking about, but at that point I was like, look, I just like we talked about, I had a lot of survivor's guilt where I'm like, man, maybe if I had done something different, if I called them or if I called him or reached out more, if any of that could make a difference. So then I
Yeah.
realized, the best thing I can do now is probably to get my story out there, get to help educate the public on mental
Yeah.
health and children, and get that conversation going at home. Maybe if more families talked about it more at home with their kids, it could save a life in the
Yeah.
future if they already had that conversation that where they felt more comfortable talking to their parents, and their parents kind of be more alert and kind of catch the signs and symptoms to see what's going on with their kids before obviously that dreaded day.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. We always want to go out if I would have, but we can't go backwards. So I'm so glad you've done something to go forward because that's the only direction we can go. And so how many books do you have? What's the name of your book? Can you show us your books?
Yeah, so I wrote a book series. It's called The Adventures of Max and Friends. It's a series of 8 books where Max is the protagonist, his main character. So this is the first book. So it's the first day of school. So the premise of the story is Max starts out his first day of 6th grade. His goal was to win the spelling bee. And along the way, basically, he makes new friends who all deal with their own mental health issues as well, and um, he you kind of get a glimpse of you get the each book's a different based on a different character, so you get a glimpse of each character's thoughts and emotions and feelings, and what it feels like to have certain mental health conditions like anxiety, depression, learning disorders, or losing a loved one. So kind of see what the thought process and the
Oh,
feelings
wow.
and emotions that are involved with each situation.
That's so important because people don't talk about that. What does it feel like to go through this? What does it feel like to go through that? Wow.
Yeah, so I think the the difference from the other books I've seen is that they kind of explain it through more like a third party, like a third person's observations, as opposed to kind of having an insight into what that character is actually feeling.
Hmm.
So, you know, I'm fortunate enough or unfortunate enough to kind of know what they're feeling, and seeing the and know what my patients were feeling. So
Hmm.
I try to put all those stories and feelings and emotions onto paper. And so when kids read it, hopefully my age group I'm aiming for like the middle grade, so they kind of understand more their emotions and feelings, and kind
Okay.
of see, if one of the things I felt was that I felt like what I was feeling was just particular to me, that maybe I'm weird and I have these feelings and other people don't.
Oh, that's so
But
normal. We all feel
yeah,
that.
yeah, sometimes you feel like maybe I'm just a weirdo here, but that's why I want to put that down where, when they read like, oh, okay, this character's feeling that way. Maybe I'm not the only one feeling that way.
Wow,
And
that's awesome.
yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to be wrote in a way where it's like you get to jump into their mind and see their feelings and their thoughts. So then you can connect with them more, and maybe that will kind of help you feel normalize how you're feeling. It's not normal to feel that way, but to know that it is okay to feel that way, and it's not, you're not alone, you're not by yourself. And maybe seek help. And sometimes if you don't know, you're just too afraid to seek help. Maybe I'm just weird. I don't want to tell anybody what I'm feeling. I don't want to think everyone think I'm like a freak. I think that's what the biggest concern is, right?
And that's shame. That's what that is.
Yeah.
That's shame. And shame is so
Yeah.
toxic.
Yeah. Yeah. So my what I was hoping for the book was that actually just start a conversation at home.
Mhm.
Have the story be something the parents can talk to their kids about, and just have that conversation at home. Because honestly, talking to all my patients and all my friends, all my family, I don't think anyone's ever said that they have ever had that kind of conversation with their parents like openly and willingly in a like a non-judgmental environment. I think
Mhm.
if they ever had that environment, that conversation is something happened. So then there's this tension,
Mhm.
opposed to um, just talking about it more freely, where you don't feel like you're under attack or under scrutiny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember anyone ever telling me that ever had that conversation with their family, with their parents. So that's why I'm hoping that this can kind of bridge that gap where you can start talking about it, kind of explore what they're feeling and talking with the parents, and kind of parents kind of sometimes get more insight on their kids and how they're feeling. For example, I think one of the pharmacists that I work with, she gave the books to her niece,
Mhm.
and her niece was reading the books, and then they were talking about the books a couple of weeks later when she saw her again, and I guess she revealed to her that, oh, she's been being bullied for a few years, but she never told anybody, and
Wow.
kind of kept it in. She didn't tell her parents, and I guess she was able to kind of segue into what was going on with her through the
Wow.
stories of the characters. She was like, well, so I mean, that made me feel like what I'm doing is really making some kind of impact, because
Yes.
she was able to open up to her aunt, and her aunt started talk to her more and kind of see what was going on.
Oh, that's wonderful. So you have like a whole series? What are the names of the books?
Yeah, so the series is called The Adventures of Max and Friends, and then each book, like I said, it's a different kind of jumping into a different character's
Mhm.
uh point of view. So the first book is called The First Day of School. The second book is called Making a New Friend. Then third book is The Test Day. Fourth book is Stage Fright, and then fifth book is New Kid, and then sixth book is Change.
Wow.
Um, and then the last two books have not been released yet, but they will be. But basically, the topics I hit in the books for parents and kids, basically, I want to hit the topics that most kids will run into. So
Mhm.
first book is First Day of School. Basically, it's about how him, the Max, the protagonist, run into his bully. So about bullying.
Mhm.
The
That's a
statistics say
big
about
problem.
yeah, the statistics say about at least 1 in 5 kids have been bullied. And then the second book is it kind of flips the script where you jump into the bully's point of view,
Oh, wow.
right? You see where he's coming from, and you know why is he lashing out the way he is? Because
Right.
most of the times bullies, bully because for a reason, right?
Yeah, they're being bullied at home sometimes. They
Yeah,
have trauma going on at home, and so they're just
they got a lot of
acting
other
out.
issues going on as well. Um, and then so basically you jump into his mindset. So and then you find out that he actually has a learning disability. So that's why he lashes out, because kind of frustrated and kind of
Wow.
envious of the main character, who's, it's like a super smart kid. So
Wow.
that's, and then you
That's
kind of
so awesome and
understand.
insightful because it brings an understanding to like everyone, because everyone's got their issues. However they're
Yeah,
behaving, whether they're looking like a stellar student or they're looking like the one
yeah,
failing. Since I've done all the study and trauma and healed of my trauma, I've looked back at some kids that I went to school with, what I can vaguely remember, and I start going, gee, I wonder what was going on in their house. I had no concept of thinking like that at that
yeah,
time,
yeah,
but it's
yeah,
like,
exactly.
and so you're writing this book and to show the, the other side, that's so helpful. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for writing these books. I think they are so needed. So where can people get these books? Do you sell them at your website? Are they available on Amazon? Are they at a
Yeah, they are
bookstore?
available on Amazon, but you can get through the website as well. It's www.theadventuresofmaxandfriends.org, or you type in Google The Adventures of Max and Friends, and the website will come up. But like I said, so the second book will transition to the bully's point of view, and then the third book you get a transition back to the main character,
Hmm.
where he goes to the where he goes to the year through the spelling bee.
Hmm.
Basically, that book teaches how to deal with failure.
Mm.
And one of the things I learned was that from my research from Dr. Duckworth. She basically is a pretty well-known psychologist, but she found out that the biggest or the most important factor in succeeding in life is not your IQ, not your talent, not your innate abilities, but it's actually grit. So grit is basically, the ability to pick yourself up from failure. So she found out that the kids that were the most successful are the kids with the most grit, not the kids that are most talented, not the kids that are the smartest, not the kids, who's like, just innately great at something, but the ones
Yeah.
that actually, the grittiest kid
Hmm.
will actually be the most successful.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Yeah, we learn from mistakes and from failure. I mean, this can be a great asset if we will
yeah,
learn from it.
yeah, I mean, the reason why I wanted to highlight that was because, in our culture, we put so much emphasis on like winning, right?
Hmm.
Winning awards, winning first place, and like losing seems kind of looked down upon, right? Like,
Yeah, and
oh,
there's places where
um,
second place is you might as well have just completely lost, depending on
yeah,
what you're surrounded by, which is
yeah,
can be
yeah,
so oppressive.
yeah. So, growing up, I think kids have this in mind that, they have so much pressure to succeed. They feel like if they don't succeed, then they're a failure to the parents, they're a failure to their family and friends, uh, and when you're a kid, I mean, that really traumatizes you.
Hmm.
Like, even for me, like, another story I'll share. As a kid, I like to sing and perform.
Hmm.
I remember when we moved to the States, I think, where there's a local like Vietnamese community, there's like a singing competition. So my parents like, oh, she saw that I was struggling in school and not doing well. They're like, okay, you like singing, why don't you go? We'll sign you up for the show, right? So I was like, cool, I'll do it. And then I remember I went on the song I sang, no one knew what it was. And then no one knew how to play the song. So I was like, okay, whatever. I'll just sing it without music. Right. So I performed in my head. I'm like, oh yeah, I killed it. Right. Obviously I ended up not winning. And then I think I didn't even get third place. Like they got first, second, third. And I was like, man, that in my head, I mean, that I've actually traumatized me a lot because I was like, man, I must be terrible because I didn't even get like,
Mm.
any prizes. And my and I actually stopped singing after that.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, man, I must be terrible. Right. So I think that's why I wanted to highlight that, like, look, it's okay to fail. I mean, a lot of people say, there's no failure, there's nothing as failure, there's learning and winning. But I do want to, I agree it to with that statement to a sense where, you do learn from your failures, but at the same time, I don't agree because it feels like you never fail. I mean, I want to accept the fact that you do fail. Failure
Mhm.
is a real thing. It's not like, right? Like you do fail, you lost a competition. Like I lost that competition. That's a real thing. It's not like, oh, I didn't win. It's just learning. But I think you need to kind of accept that you
Yeah, you
did.
have to own the truth that it was a failure. And I think
Yeah, you
that if
own
you
it.
own that truth, that's what
Yeah,
actually empowers you to learn. I don't
yeah,
think you can just say, I'm going to learn, because then you're glossing over that thing that happened.
yeah,
You need to
exactly.
own the truth of that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly how I felt. Like you need to own like I did fail, but what went wrong, right?
Hmm.
Maybe I should have prepared more. Maybe if they knew the song, maybe they didn't know how to play the song, and so forth. That's how you learn and move on.
Yeah.
Maybe
And,
a little bit.
not everyone can be the
Yeah,
best of everything. I mean,
yeah,
the number one person in the world, only one can be that. Right.
yeah,
So, I mean,
exactly.
if you put people in a line, it's in a line. So there's only one on
Yeah,
the end. You can't have everyone unless you
yeah,
turn the line sideways. Then everyone's
yeah,
a person. But it's not reality. So,
yeah, yeah. That's why I wanted to highlight that grittiness. Like, look, to understand that, look, I did fail, I lost, but this is what I'm gonna need to do to get better, to move to the next phase and become better.
mhm.
And losing is not everything. I mean, you see so many uh suicide cases where the kids are so much under so much pressure, they couldn't handle it, they just commit suicide, like in competitive colleges where you see college students kind of commit suicide all the time because they feel like they couldn't hack it, and it's for to them it's like only succeeding or failing, and if you fail then I'm just gonna kill myself. So I think that's why I want to highlight grittiness. Like look,
Mm,
it's not okay to fail, but take that failure and move on. It's not the
mhm.
end of the world. But the
Right.
kids that can move on from failure and just take that, get up every time they get knocked down, that kid will eventually be more successful than a kid that's initially successful because they don't
Right.
know how to take failures. Because if you've been successful your whole life, you get hit with failure, that might hit you harder than a kid that's been failing and keeps going, 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 right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what is one thing that you would like to make sure that kids know? If you could say one thing to kid, if there was a kid listening to this or a mom's listening, oh, I need to make sure I tell my kid this. What's something you want to make sure the kids know?
Yeah, I want to make sure kids know that their feelings are just as important as adult feelings.
Amen.
That a lot of times I feel like kids' feelings are not validated, like by adults. So I want to know. I just want them to know that their feelings are very valid, and what they're feeling, it's what they're feeling. Is nothing to gloss over, nothing to be ashamed of, and again, it is a feeling, so it will pass. So I think just know that there are support for you. It's not a permanent feeling. You don't permanently feel joy, right? So you don't permanently feel depression. So it is a phase that will pass as long as they get help and seek help and just validate what they're feeling as is a real feeling. It's not something that is hormonal, maybe part of hormonal, but it's not entirely all that due to
Well,
that.
even if it is hormonal, it's still you're feeling it.
Yeah.
There's just a different reason why. So
Yeah.
you still need to pay attention to it, right?
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. I think that's what I kind of want to pass to kids is that just validate your feelings. It's okay to feel that way and understand that it is a feeling.
Amen. Well, how can people connect with you?
Yeah, so if you have any questions, concerns, or anything, you can connect me to the website, and they can send me messages, and it will go to me, and I can respond to any questions or inquiries or anything like that. I think,
At the
uh,
maxandfriends.org.
yeah, Adventures of
Okay.
Max and Friends.org. Mhm.
Okay. Are you on any social medias at all or no?
Uh, my social medias are mainly just personal. I don't use it for
Okay.
anything else, but the website's my main outlet.
Okay.
Mhm.
All righty. Well, thank you for sharing this with us today. And thank you for writing these books. And I just want to, listeners, go get copies of this book for your kids, your grandkids, your nieces, your nephews. These are going to be very powerful, and I think the world needs them. So go to maxandfriends.org and get these books. Thank you for being with us today, Dr. Nghi Dang. I just appreciate it so much.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you, listeners, for being with us today. Until next time, I love you. Bye-bye.